Alright, everyone, welcome back. So, it's time for another Metropolitan team discussion, and today it's the New York Islanders. The Islanders, they honestly weren't a team that I was expecting to be talking about today. I wasn't. Yesterday, I figured that kind of had a feeling that the Oilers were going to lose, but they didn't. The Islanders lost. And now the Islanders have dropped to a 5-game losing streak, and it has been brutal for them. It really has. They struggle to score. They struggle to keep the puck out of their net. They struggle to hold leads. It seems like everything is kind of just bad right now in New York. However, they aren't that far out of it. They can still crawl themselves out of it, but they need to do it as soon as possible. So their overall team stats right now, they are 5, 6, and 3 for 13 points. And as I mentioned, they are currently on a 5-game losing streak. Those 5 games, I'm going to say this. A lot of them are against teams, all of them actually are against teams that were in the playoffs last year except for one. So that is something that I do keep into consideration here when I look at this 5-game losing streak. But a lot of these games as well have been painful for the Islanders. They have been painful. You got the first one, 4-3 overtime loss versus the Carolina Hurricanes. The Islanders were up 3-1 in that game, or 3-0. 3-0 in that game, and they blew a 3-0 lead. That to me, I thought it was the start of this, and it really started with, killing this team's momentum, because before that, they were actually okay. They were actually kind of decent. But now that they've gone through this 5-game losing streak, it just seems like they've lost their mojo, and they look a lot like the Islanders that we saw last year. They really do right now. Next game, they lose 4-2 to Minnesota, which is brutal considering the fact that Minnesota's goalies have not been very good this year. It's just a known fact when you look at the stats and all that. And, it's definitely rough there for the Islanders to lose that one. Next up, then they lose 5-2 to Boston. That's not a loss that I'm overly concerned about, because I look at that loss and I say to myself, well, that's the best team in the league. It's going to be hard to beat them. There's only been less than 10 times where they've lost in regulation over the past 2 years. It's been a long time. So definitely that's a factor I take in. Washington, they lost 4-1, and they should beat Washington. They're a team that they've beaten before. They've beaten Washington before this past season. They should be beating the Capitals. And then in that game against Edmonton, prior to the game, there was a lot of momentum that was just down in Edmonton. The momentum didn't seem good. They fired their coach. It just didn't seem like the Oilers were really that team anymore, or that team as of then. And it felt like that was a good chance for the Islanders to turn this one around, and they blow a 1-0 lead and let in 4 straight. One of those was an empty netter, but regardless, that is something to take into consideration. And now we're up to now. In those 5 games, they've been outscored 21-9. That's an average of 4 goals a game, and that's pretty much is the average. All of those games except for one, they've let in 4 goals, and the one game that they didn't let in 4 goals, they let in 5. So definitely, that's not going to fly. And I think it's definitely affected Sorokin's stats when you look at it in the long term. He's still a good goalie, but it's affected his numbers, and we'll get into that in a second here. But only scoring 9 goals too, it's concerning, but it's not surprising. You look at the way this team's built; they're not built for offense. They're built for a defensive style of game. And, we're at the point where I feel like the team has aged too much, and it just doesn't work anymore. The system that Barry Trotz had in place doesn't work anymore, and that's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. It is. Now, I understand that there's a lot of concern with Islanders fans about Lou Lamoriello and Lane Lambert, more specifically Lane Lambert, because Lambert Lambert was being chanted to be fired in a game against the Capitals. There were chants at that last home game. And Casey Cizikas, the longest tenured New York Islander, comes out and says that, if you shouldn't be saying things like this about our coach, and if you want to say these things, then you should just stay home. You can just stay home. And I feel like when they play their next home game, I kind of feel like that's going to bite them in the ass, because they might see a really low attendance rate. And they've already seen low attendance rate this year, too. 13,000. That seems like a good amount, but for an NHL arena like that, a more modern arena like UBS, that's not good. That's not good numbers at all. So definitely, I am a little bit concerned. But let me be honest with you. If you fire Lambert, is it going to change anything? Is it going to change the way this roster is built, the way this roster is? No, it's not. It's not going to change anything. Maybe you get in a new face. Maybe some things can work. Maybe the offense improves a little bit. But this team is built for defense. They're not built for a highly offensive game. They're built for a defensive style. And, that's just, it just doesn't work anymore, as I said. So maybe then you point your eyes toward Lamoriello. He's had quite a history of not doing things or just waiting to not do things. Like, I remember in 2022 when they were rumored to sign Nazem Kadri, and it looked like they were, and then they didn't. So that plays a factor there too for me. I am very concerned with the future of this team, and I will give Lamoriello some credit where it's due. I said in a video back in probably March or when they were signing all their players that they were doubling down on this core, and I give him credit for that, I guess. But really, in the long term, it's going to hurt this team so much. Like, for the next 4 to 5 years, maybe even longer than that, they're going to be in this situation. It's going to take a very long time for them to pull themselves out of this. So definitely that is a little bit of a concern that I have there. But anyways, moving on into the actual scores of this video. We're just getting into that. You got Noah Dobson, 14 games played, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. That is your leading scorer. Noah Dobson. That can't fly. No disrespect to Dobson, but you need to see more offensive production out of other guys on that roster. That is just not going to fly for me. Bo Horvat, second in scoring, 13 games played, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points. I'd say that's a decent, not bad for him. That's probably the level he's going to play at. Honestly, he's not the guy he was last year. So that's probably the amount of the pace of points he's going to get this year. Unfortunately, next up, then Matthew Barzal, 14 games played, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points. Need to see a little bit more scoring out of Barzal. But, regardless, Brock Nelson, then 14 games played, 6 goals, 2 assists, 8 points. And then Kyle Palmieri, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points in 14 games played. You look at those numbers, that's not great. That's not great offensive numbers. And I'm not saying they don't need a Jack Hughes on their team to score 30 points for the first 15 games. I'm not saying that. However, I really do think that they need offense. That's their biggest factor. They're being outscored in games. They literally only in one game of that 5-game losing streak had they scored more than twice. The other ones were either 2 or 1 goal games. So that is a concern that I have there too with this team. And again, as I mentioned, there are a lot of players on this team that are not contributing offensively. Anders Lee, very bad start to the year. 2 points in 12 games. That's not gonna fly. It's just not gonna work for him. He's not played the level that he should be as the captain, and that sucks. But he just hasn't been. John Gabriel Pageau, no goals. No goals. I remember when they traded for him, he was looked at to be a goal scorer. He's not that anymore. He's not at that level anymore. And then Oliver Wahlstrom, I feel bad for this man so much because I originally thought that he was actually a pretty good scorer for the Islanders. I look at his career stats, the best season he's had is literally 30 points. That is just, and I know it's because it's the Islanders and they play a much more defensive structure, but that's still concerning. 1 goal in 8 games played. And I believe there were a few games in there where he was scratched. So, that plays a factor there too. Then you got Sorokin. Sorokin on the back end. He's doing what he can, honestly. He's got 9 games played, 3-3-3, 3.21 goals against average, and a .907. I'd say a .907 for a 3.21. Pretty good average. I'd say that those are good numbers for a guy like him. But, still, just I feel like at the point that this team's at right now, the defensive structure just doesn't work. The defense isn't the team that it used to be. It's not the team that won 5 straight series. It's not. It's not that team anymore. And I hate to say it, and it blows, but it's just not that team anymore. So yeah, their upcoming schedule goes as follows. You got Vancouver, Seattle, Calgary, which I believe is their West Coast road trip, not California, West Coast. Then you got Philadelphia, Ottawa. Then you play Philadelphia again. Then you play the Devils and the Hurricanes. So can they pull themselves out of this? Absolutely. Like they could go on a stretch here where they win like 3 or 4 games in a row. I don't think so though. I think that road trip for them is going to be very difficult. I really do think it is. I will say this though, like they can beat Seattle, they can beat Calgary. Vancouver's the only one that's difficult. So let's say they go 2-2 on the road trip. That's not bad. That's not that bad. And then they use that momentum. They can beat Philadelphia. They can beat Ottawa. So they can turn this around. But the question is, are they going to? We'll find out. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below on the Islanders. My final wrap up is like if they're gonna make a change, I feel like you need to fire Lamoriello so then that way the Islanders can somehow find a way to clear house. Because I don't think Lamoriello is gonna do that. I don't think he's he's 80 years old. I don't think he's gonna be doing that at this point in time. And this team is full of a lot of old veterans who like they just aren't at their peak anymore. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Hit that subscribe button down below. I greatly appreciate it. But regardless, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.